we're back with another draft profile video. Today's going to be a little bit shorter and sweeter and to the point, but this is a player that I just decided I had to do a video on individually because the more I watched, the more I did not understand why he is maybe not getting more hype. We're going to be talking about a defensive back from Arizona, and that is Treydan Stukes. Hopefully I'm saying that name right. I didn't look up how to pronounce it, but this is a player that Pro Football Focus will list as a cornerback right now. I assume that's going to change. You could view him as a cornerback. He did a lot of slot work for Arizona, but a lot of that was also from a safety position, just working into the slot. But he also, to me, is a safety. Now, he could translate to both, but I think from a consistency perspective, you would want to grade him out as a safety specifically in the NFL, and that's how I'm going to be looking at Treydan today. However, there doesn't seem to be a lot of buzz for whatever reason, but I think that's going to happen very quickly because of his size, athleticism, and production. Now, he is a 6-year senior, which I do think knocks it down a peg because of how much experience he does have. But the positive is he plays to that experience level. This past season with Arizona, he only allowed a 59% completion percentage from the safety position, a 34 pass rating, 4 interceptions, no touchdowns, just 213 yards. He also does have some injury history, including the past season in 2024 where he only showed up and played in 4 games, or even this season he only played in 10 games. And again, 6-year senior, all with Arizona, really became kind of a full-time starter going back to 2022 where he played in 11 games, starting in 7 of those games. But the positive is, again, a lot of the things that you would expect out of a player with that much experience does show up in a positive way when you watch Treydan. So let's jump right into it. First off, let's start with the coverage element because there's a lot to like here. And to me, my favorite element is going to be his ball skills. So I'll jump right into it. I think he has great ball skills, and I think they're going to translate well, really whatever assignment he's in. A lot of this comes back to his build. 6'2", 200 pounds, seems to have a lot of length, and I think it translates incredibly well. He has fantastic tracking speed down the field vertically, really large radius at the catch point, doesn't really have a tendency to arrive early, seems to arrive on time, and I think the angles that he takes with the ball in the air, specifically vertically, when you're talking about some of the more safety alignments, to close airspace, close distance, yet still track the ball with the kind of speed that he has in timing is fantastic. He's made some incredible grabs. The interception that he had this past season against Arizona State was absolutely ridiculous. That's one of those plays that stands out. Continuing on to that, we start with some of his press coverage ability. Again, a lot of this is more so seen from the slot alignment, or if you viewed him as a cornerback. There is some looseness to track routes. I think this really shows up in trail coverage. Specifically, there's a lot of hip flexibility, a lot of looseness to his game. He's disciplined to recover, again, once he is beaten vertically. Now, unfortunately, that happened too many times. He did get beat vertically from a safety alignment, aggressively stepping down in coverage, or an off-man coverage at the top of the route. You'd see him get shook a little bit, as we'll talk about as an issue. I did like is when he got to those trail positions, he was very disciplined to get back into play, not looking back for the ball, just getting his hands up, trying to be disruptive, trying to time up the wide receivers and kind of his eyes to get himself in a position where he could try to make a play on the football. Lower body weight would shift a bit, which would get him into some trouble. It would create separation, especially in some of those press alignments, and you would see more of this like in goal line situations where he just looked a little bit slow to react. He looked a little bit like he was stuck in mud at the line of scrimmage, but his lateral transition burst from a base alignment is really strong. He gets out with urgency, and it's immediate in terms of those transitions specifically. He's got that immediate transition juice. Coverage alignments, off-man coverage assignments specifically, he plays with a nice wide base at the top of the route, which does create some balance. I think his crossover footwork is fantastic. He looks like a basketball player moving laterally, and that covers a lot of airspace in a hurry, a lot of lateral depth immediately. And this is especially important when you talk about playing off coverage, recognizing overs and drag routes, and not allowing himself to get out leveraged. He gets on those routes quickly gets himself out, and does a great job protecting against guys just running away from him. Closing bursts, another really strong element for his game, protecting the sticks specifically. We saw that against Iowa State where he can kind of step down, anticipate they're trying to get to the sticks, and multiple times this past year it would be like a 3rd and 5 and it turns into a 4th and 1 because he had a sense for the sticks. He's pretty stout at the tackle point, so he's not allowing much leakage, which way that he enters to finish, and he has that juice but also the awareness to keep guys short of the sticks. He had a really good field awareness that was noticeable in those spots specifically. Now, he did get caught over committing positioning with proactive movements because he gets out so quickly. That can get him into some trouble. Even some of the vertical timing that I thought that he had transition-wise, that could be an issue if you constantly had him sitting in man assignments, occasionally from that slot role specifically. That said, I think it translates better to safety when he has more room to see it and really work top down. I think that's where he seems to be at his best. Now, what I also notice is that his feet get off the ground a little bit. This is not always connected with his hips. It tends to be a little bit disconnected, disjointed, but also he seems like his footwork gets a little bit up in the air. He doesn't stay grounded consistently, which also delays his transitions, but he is very patient at creating depth from off coverage typically, and I think his vision really shines. He works through stacks, rubs, bunches really well. His vision is consistent through two-man route concepts. He sees more than just his assignment, which allows him to kind of lurk and overlap and make plays away from his assignment as well, or step down and make plays through his assignment if it's just kind of a rub route or someone's just trying to clear him out of the play. He's got a sense to working through that. He triggers his feet very quickly. Receiver movement, you'll see him kind of jump tight ends, and he has a good sense for the route pace changing and getting on top of those. A little bit less responsive for receivers, and I think especially like level 1 routes from man coverage, he feels a little bit less responsive where he's not anticipating as consistently to just drive on routes, and I think he's a little bit okay with letting routes happen in front of him, which I don't think translates incredibly well to corner. I think it translates really well to safety as an issue that he kind of allows guys to play a little bit of pitch and catch in front of him, level 1, 3, 4 yards, which I think is an issue that would be hopefully improved from a safety alignment specifically, a little bit more depth. He squeezes, though, when he's working around traffic. He works through situations of stacks and rubs really well to not get caught up in a traffic jam, but still get to his assignment specifically. He's very controlled. We saw that against Kansas. He's got a real physical two-handed punch at the top of the route or through the route stem, and this is physical but very balanced, and we see this whenever he gets matched up with tight ends. He's a good bracket defender. He works match coverage situations well. He works switching off man coverage responsibilities pretty well as well when he can bracket in a guy with some help on the outside. And tighten up, as mentioned, at the top of the route, close some of that airspace a little bit more. He tends to give a little bit too much cushion to me, but he gets out early and very accurately for the vertical push. We saw that again against Arizona State on that interception. He just gets a little bit too upright, and his footwork is just a bit disconnected. Now, in zone coverage, I think he also does a lot of good here. His eye balance tends to lean pretty heavy to the quarterback, which I think translates well for zone. It makes him a bit more rangy, and to that as well, I think his ability to overlap starts to shine. His length becomes a real problem when he stepped into some of those slot alignments specifically. And also, he does a good job of reading the full development of play, like play action sets, expecting the vertical route, quarters concepts, doesn't really ever get beat over top, very responsive to just go, trust himself and trust his eyes and take off. I think that's the biggest positive. It can be a touch of an issue in off-man balancing in terms of where's the route breaking versus where's the quarterback looking, and that gives some separation. It can be a little bit delayed, but in zone assignments, I think it's much cleaner as we've seen. He trusts his eyes a lot in quarters assignments, in those half-field coverage assignments, but he recognizes route development pretty quickly. He's got immediate response again to those vertical setups, a really reliable eye balance. I think that translates better to zone coverage specifically, and he's balanced when working in those match assignments. He creates depth with ease in terms of his back pedal, the fluidity to gain depth. He can create a lot of depth in a hurry, and also the way that he closes to the ball with the ball in the air with that tracking speed all translates pretty well. Now, his footwork to me gets a little bit staggered in zone, and that tends to give him some problems with allowing some separation. And I think you also see this again. You'll see this in spots like in cover 3 where he gets out and he gets wide and he can get underneath the number 1 receiver, but tends to break a little bit loose, and you wonder about some of that true lateral mobility and fluidity to bounce around from receiver to receiver rather than just racing to a spot and really maximizing the kind of length that he has to be consistent and close airspace in those spots. And again, his pads will rise a little bit when he gets in a position where he's kind of catching routes, and that allows his hips to declare, and it makes him just look he's stuck in mud where his responsiveness isn't immediate, his feet are not grounded, and it tends to slow him down a bit. But he has tons of ranging speed, which again shows up well for safety, and he's very quick to dive and diagnose, screen setups, attack, and he attacks blocks, which pulls it all together because as a run game player, he's got a lot of physicality. I think it's close to a great spot. Typically, you don't really see situations where he's not willing to stick his nose in, and you see him really crank it up when he's away from the football to get into the play. Short situations, he attacks and out leverages tight ends at the point of attack, just battles, and as a tackler, he's pretty stout. Like, he doesn't allow much leakage. He can be a little bit high, which is one issue, or sometimes he'll kind of fly by, just soaring downhill. But for the most part, when he does hit, he does kind of stop and halt the ball carrier to at least allow teammates to get there. He runs his legs. He's pretty twitchy when he's in space as a finisher. I think he's got good fitting aggression against the run, against tight ends, or fitting into a run gap, or attacking the leverage that he needs to maintain. He's got knee bend to corner. It opens up some blitzing flexibility as well with his length and his awareness to get into pass lanes, but also having the short area foot quickness, which makes him a problem, kind of dip around. He's got a little bit of bend to his game, fast feet. I think he's got legitimate blitzing upside, especially from safety, because right now he's doing it from slot, but he could do it from a safety alignment as well as like a box strong safety. I think there's a lot of upside there. So for me overall, and then you tie this to the fact that he plays special teams. He's used a lot as a jammer. He's utilized on a field goal block. He's a good communicator in those spots, just being around it, of course. But the same thing you see pre-snap as well. Some things I don't love post-snap, where I feel like his communication kind of falls flat, where you don't always feel like he's working through with teammates. He's kind of like, communicate pre-snap, and I'm going to go do my own thing and be decisive. We don't always get the post-snap communication, which I think can lack a bit there. But ultimately, very smart player. he ends up like to me the age is going to be the biggest problem, but I think this is a round 2 pick. I won't get round 1, but I think his build, his athleticism, the value of safety can fluctuate or what teams view him as. And I think if he was better in man, or right now he's closer to average, this would be a slam dunk. I think he's good in zone, not elite, but it's really all the critical factors for a safety. He's smart, he plays fast, he makes impact all over the field, he's rangy, he can blitz, he's a pretty good tackler, he's physical, he communicates well pre-snap, he's got immediate impact upside. I don't know, maybe some teams will question some of the long-term, like how great can he be, but for me, this feels like absolutely a day 2 pick and probably a round 2 pick as he should be. He comes in with a really strong grade for me, as you'll see on the screen there, and I'm sitting in a kind of a 6'3 to 6'4 range, which is a fantastic grade. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Treydan Stukes. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.